V&A and to our very special event, The Art of Making Art, Staging Sondheim. This is a really special event for us. It's part of our Performance Festival 2023, and it is in conjunction with our display Reimagining Musicals, which is in the Theatre Performance Galleries on level 3. So if you haven't been already, I do urge you to go and have a look around there. It's open until the end of May. It closes over the summer period, and then it will reopen again until next February. So just very briefly, I wanted to give an overview of the programme for this afternoon. Amazing, thank you. So we're going to start off with a Q&A panel with performers Ollie Higginson, Jenna Russell, Samantha Spiro, and musical director Nigel Lilly, which will be chaired by Matt Wolfe. Then we'll have a 15-minute break, followed by a masterclass with students from the National Youth Music Theatre, with Nigel Lilly and led by Jenna Russell. And this will be centred on Merry We Roll Along, which is the focus of the whole afternoon. Then we'll have another break, and then we'll finish off with a performance with several numbers from students from NYMT and from the Stephen Sondheim Performer of the Year competition, which will be some Merrily and some other Sondheim favourites, and maybe a special performance by Jenna Russell as well. So it'll be really, really lovely. And then a couple of housekeeping notes. If you hear a fire alarm, please respect the instructions. We don't have any drills planned this afternoon, so please leave through these two exits and follow our instructions. We're wearing green t-shirts today, so you'll be able to find us. And you are welcome to take photographs as well during the event, but please no flash. Respect the performers this afternoon. So I'll hand over to Craig Glenday, Chair of the Stephen Sondheim Society.
If you were here last year, you may remember I had notes which I couldn't access on my dead iPad. So this year I have no notes. So who knows what's going to happen. I'll be very, very quick though. Thank you to Harriet and to the V&A for again inviting us back. This is a two-day event. Some of you might have been here yesterday to see some of the pop performances, and it was sounding amazing, really amazing. Today we have even more performers for you, so from NYMT and also from the Stephen Sondheim Society Student Performer of the Year competition. We are a charity, the Stephen Sondheim Society. We were founded initially as almost like a fan club, really, that we got charity status. And our big event of the year is the Stephen Sondheim Society Student Performer of the Year competition, which tickets have just gone on sale for, and hopefully in your laps you will have a little brochure for it with a QR code if you're that technically minded. Please do come along and support it. It's our jewel in the crown, as it were, and it's a chance to present to you really some of the best musical theatre students in the country. We've had some great winners over the years, and you'll hear some of in fact, the finalists from last year will be performing later today, and they're all amazing. You'll really enjoy it. Whilst I'm here, we also are a membership society, so if you sign up, again on the other side of this multifunctional document, turn it over, there's another QR code with details of how to join. So please do support us and help us support young people coming in to musical theatre. It's very important. You get magazines. You get social events, very relevant. In fact, the last social event we did, the last cabaret, was a show called Merrily We Sing Along. And the idea was that you're actually meant to sing along to the show. Today, don't. Obviously, you paid your money, but you haven't paid your money, but you're here, so please respect and no singing. Okay, I'm going to shut up now, really, but do sign up if you can, please. Magazine's lovely, full colour. Let me introduce to you today's panel for the first section. So we're very pleased to have the critic Matt Wolfe, and in fact, Matt, come on through, with Jenna, who will be hosting I'm leading a masterclass later with Nigel Lilly. Yeah, come through, come on. Samantha Spiro, yeah, come on.
Yep.
Yes? Good. I'm Matt Wolfe. Thank you all so much for coming to this panel discussion on largely Merrily We Roll Along, but I'm sure we'll dip into other aspects of the Sondheim canon. I'll make very brief introductions of my distinguished and beloved guests as they relate to Sondheim and to me. I first met Ollie Higginson at the far end when he played brilliantly well Franklin in a Guildhall production of Merrily We Roll Along in 2019. I was there just to see it, because why not? And we met, and the rest is history. Nigel, I've known for years and years. He's come and done sessions with my students. He's a Sondheim conductor and musical director extraordinaire, and many other composers as well. Remarkably connected to the recent production of Follies, which many of you may have seen at the National or on camera, and has worked on a company as well, which we'll hear about. Sam, I met when I was writing a book about the Donmar 23 years ago, and she played Mary in the first sort of proper professional London production of Merrily We Roll Along, directed by Michael Grandage, for which she won an Olivier Award, her first of two. And Jenna, I feel my entire relationship with you, friendship is defined by Sondheim. First Young Sally and Follies at the Shaftesbury Theatre, 1987 onwards, and so you would never know, including Into the Woods twice, Dot, of course, here and on Broadway in Something Park with George, and very, very memorably and extraordinarily Mary and Merrily at the Minier and on the West End. So thank you all very much for coming. We're just going to kind of chat and see where the conversation rolls. I should just tell you, for those of you who may be interested, my own connection to Merrily is quite a significant one. I grew up in New York and saw some of the Sondheim productions on Broadway originally, starting with Sweeney Todd. But when Merrily opened on Broadway in 1981, my oldest friend from childhood, David Loud, was cast in it as Ted. Ted is the very small role of the pianist in the kind of Kennedy review scene, Bobby and Jackie and Jack and Ted. And David was cast as Ted, and we were classmates together at Yale, and he took a year off from Yale to do the production on Broadway. As you will all know better than I, the production closed after 2 weeks. So his year off from Yale turned out to be rather aborted, but it was an extraordinary time, and I saw the production several times. Thanks to David, he understudied Lonnie Price, who was the original Charlie, and I remember going to the final Saturday matinee. It was then the Alvin Theatre, and David told me that Lonnie had said to David, "I'm feeling fine, but if you would like to come as Charlie this afternoon, just to have done it on Broadway, I'm happy to sit out the performance." And David said, "Absolutely not." But what I do remember, and I think it's a testament to the power of this show, and of course that was the final Saturday matinee, they knew what was going to happen, which was that it was coming to an end. And when they all sang Our Time at the very end, there was not a dry eye on stage or in the audience. And there's a documentary, by the way, about that production, which I'm sure many of you have seen online, and it's very much worth watching. So let's begin. I think, Sam, let's begin with you, because of the various Merrilies that I was just talking about, yours was the first that I saw in London, and it was such a big deal for the Donmar to do it. Michael Grandage had never directed a musical at that point, and he wasn't running the Donmar yet. So rewinding the tape, what did you sort of think about the offer and just the gig?
Well, it wasn't just an offer, it was after 6 auditions. Oh, hello. Yeah, I had just worked with Michael up at Sheffield on As You Like It, and he said, I think Vicky Hamilton and I were, part of our warm-up for As You Like It, was doing music hall numbers in the dressing room, and Michael was outside listening one day, and he said, "I didn't know you could sing." And I went, "Well, that's hardly singing," because it was really raucous and awful. He said, "Oh, I've got an idea." And he mentioned Merrily We Roll Along, and I thought, oh, great, that'll be an offer for something. 6 auditions later. The worst being the dance audition, which was just, I mean, sort of with people whose legs came up to my head. And I just thought, well, I'm just not going to get this now. And I wasn't confident with my singing, and it was just such an awful process, but I did get the role, and I didn't really know about much of the background behind the production, except that Michael had seen it at Guildhall. And it stuck in his mind as one of the best things that he said he'd ever seen. And it was the original version, in other words, the young kids playing all the parts and taking Franklin back on the journey, and then ending up with The Hills of Tomorrow at the end. And that was the version that Sondheim didn't want to be done. But Michael was so insistent on doing that one. And although I was actually 32, by quite a long way the oldest person in the company, and most people had just left drama school, including Julian Ovenden. And Daniel Evans, who was, he was really old as well, I think he was 27. But yeah, 5 years younger than me, and he was the next, and yeah. So it was, and it just turned out to be a gift. I mean, Jenna and I were just saying before, you know, we've never actually spoken about how lucky we were to have played Mary. It's the most extraordinary part in the most fabulous show, isn't it?
Well, on and off of that, Jenna, you played Mary with an awareness, presumably, of this production, but also extraordinarily, very different for you. You were being directed by a woman who had played Mary, i.e. Maria Friedman.
Yeah.
Michael Greenwich had not played Mary. So, excuse me. So tell us, kind of coming to it with an awareness maybe of the Donmar production or not, and also Maria having played the role you were about to play.
Well, and anyone who's ever heard me blathering on about Sondheim, I've kind of been doing Sondheim since I was doing Sondheim. I had a Sondheim group at school. So 15 years old, I was singing Pacific Overtures, and Good Thing Going was my audition song when I was 16. So I knew this, I kind of know all of his shows inside out, upside down, and all around and about. And I did audition for the Donmar production, but I didn't get it. But I was working with Anna Francolini at the time, and she was brilliant. She played Gussie, but I remember her coming. I wanted to punch her in the head. She came into this rehearsal and she went, "I've got it." I went, "Oh, brilliant, mate." I said, "I've not heard anything." And I said to her, "I know I didn't get it." And this is Anna's comedic bend. It's not her being horrible, but she went, "So does that now mean officially that I'm better than you?" Yeah. So there. So I did. Obviously, I went to see it and I loved it. And I was when I knew they were doing. I didn't know they were doing it right. I'd done Sun in the Park on Broadway, and I came home and I'd had my daughter because I got pregnant in New York. I'd had my daughter, and then I was in that time in one's life that happens quite a lot when you're an actress, where you think you're never going to work again, and everything you've been doing for the last 30 years doesn't mean bugger all. And I was sat at home doing nothing, and then I got offered to do a little job at Soho Theatre, and it was such a bad little part for me, but I thought, you know what, I need to work, I need to do something. I did it, so glad I did it, but Michael Xavier was playing my husband, well, I was playing his wife, very subsidiary role, and one day he came in and he said, "Oh, I'm auditioning for Mary." I went, "What?" I said, "You're far too, mustn't swear, you're far too old." I said, "How come you're going up for bloody Franklin?" And he went, no, they're doing it with older people. And my head went, bing. So I said, "Well, where are they doing it?" He said, "Donmar, where?" No, sorry, at the chocolate factory. I was like, "Oh, and who's directing it?" He said, "Maria." Now, my confidence was that big, and I just thought, bugger it, I never do this. And I texted Maria, they've been auditioning people for ages. I texted Maria and I went, "Look, this is a really long shot, but please see me for Mary." And she did. And again, I did about 3 or 4 auditions, and I thought, she's not going to give me this. She's not going to give me this. But she did, and I was so grateful, because I've always loved the show. I've always wanted to play that part. And actually, I was a bit trepidatious. I thought, is Maria going to be coming at this with her like, you're not doing it right, because she's played the part. But she was brilliant, actually. She really was, and it was a gorgeous production.
When I was married,
No,
Leicester,
she never did. She never did. I remember one time she said, I was doing Like It Was, which is still a bit of a conundrum to me. And she went, "You don't know what you're singing about." No, I haven't got a clue. I'm just winging it. But no, she was brilliant. She just always wanted more. Be more drunk, be more angry, be more. And she was right all the way, because my inner little monster was going, "You're doing too much." But she was like, "No, she's more. And it was a great production, and she was terrific, actually, directing it.
Now, Ollie, there is a charmed history between the Guildhall and Merrily. Sam mentions Michael Grandage having seen a production in 1983 at the Guildhall, and that was the first time that the show was staged in the UK. That was 2 years after Broadway. Then there was a totally separate production up in Manchester, and then later on the Donmar production. So when I saw that the Guildhall was doing Merrily, I kind of thought, oh, it's sort of a perfect circle, returning to where the show began in London. So what was it like for you at drama school to be doing that show, to be doing that part?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly, I was just saying to Sam, like, it was actually obviously great, you know, it was my last show at Guildhall, playing Franklin Shepherd in Merrily Roll Along, great, you know. Everyone come see it, and you know, rest is history. That's what you hope, you know. But it was actually a very intrusive experience because it was wonderful, and I was with the best friends of my life in third year of drama school doing this show that's all about friends and all about growing up and all about your aspirations for your career and your life and the people you want to spend it with or don't. And but also the corruption, you know, of the industry, you know, as beautiful as the business is, you know, the reality of casting directors and agents and all those, you know, ominous things that come into your life when you're a graduating drama student. And it was beginning to, you know, pull us apart as a year, you know. You could just tell that people who you'd rely on each other for everything, as you do at drama school. Suddenly, when there's a casting director in the audience, something shifts and people change, and that's, you know, of course, like, it's natural, and that's the way it is. So I felt we all found it really moving to do, and you know, obviously, anyone who does the show, kind of, the last time we do it, at least, you're just sort of in streams of tears, thinking, oh my gosh, you know, this is the end of something that we're not going to have again, just like the stages they go through in that show, and life never pans out how you want it to be. And so it was really moving and really, really raw and difficult, actually, and beautiful. It was an amazing experience. Yeah. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. We Dan Evans came to see it, which was wonderful, and. Some fabulous people came to see it, but no, Stephen didn't. I mean, yeah, it was, we only did it for probably 10 days or something. That was that. But yeah, it was cool.
Now, Nigel, you conducted that extraordinary National Theatre revival of Follies, which I saw 4 or 5 times. And there's a wonderful song in Follies, One More Kiss, where the two Heidis say the lyric, "Never look back, never look back." And I was thinking about that because so interesting for Sondheim, having written that lyric, and then having written a show called Merrily We Roll Along, which is about always looking back, about the inevitability of looking back. So, can you look back on your sort of introduction to Sondheim, maybe as a spectator, and then entering into working with his music?
Actually, my entree into the business, as it were, is seeing your show, because I met Gareth Valentine afterwards in the bar, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do what you do. And so he said, okay, 10 o'clock tomorrow, come to the theatre. So I went up to met him in the Donmar, and so I went up to the Perch, and he said, okay, so I read the overture. And, you know, the Merrily overture is quite early. And so I sort of got through it and sweating away. He said, okay, up a tone. So the first couple of pages up a tone, got through it. I was like, now let it be over. But then, so Gareth then mentored me after that moment. So I have a connection. So I also was blown away by that production, Julian, all of you. But and then in terms of, I was kind of worried, you know, because time went on and I didn't get a sometime gig that he came to. We did company, didn't we, up in Sheffield? But in terms of like a London one where he'd be around, and I was getting quite nervous about that because it was my dream to work with him. And then Follies came round, and it was kind of as extraordinary as you'd expect. So the first night, after the first preview, we ended up in the bar afterwards, and he was just telling stories, and it was very surreal. And then I cycled home, and my husband said that he could hear me sobbing from where I parked my bike. Then across the courtyard, he just said he could hear me crying all the way. But we all have those stories, don't we? It was just, you know, it was really, really special.
Sam, there was a lovely image, which you won't have been aware of, but I was sitting 4 rows behind you, I think, at the Olivier Awards this year, a couple of Sundays ago, and all of a sudden I realized, looking at the lineup, that you and Daniel Evans and Julian Ovenden were all sitting there in a row at the Olivier Awards in 2023, and 23 years ago, you had been playing Mary and Charlie and Franklin. And I thought, if there isn't better visual evidence of the power of this show, I don't know what it is. So can you sort of speak to, and you alluded to this, but you know, you were doing it at 19, so who knows what will happen in years to come. But 23 years, those friendships continuing to several weeks ago.
It is so interesting. Daniel and I became really, really solid immediately. And we had such a connection. My relationship with Julian has been more recent. The three of us went through such an incredible time doing Merrily. Julian had just left drama school, and you know, he was just this amazing young talent. I think he went on his journey, and then Daniel and I went on a slightly different journey at the time. But in recent years, having had that experience together, meeting up and seeing each other, feels quite overwhelming actually. And we've sort of discovered something in more recent years that is connected to having had that experience together. And situations like that, and we've sat together, the three of us, at other things as well, and it is just kind of, I mean, it's just very special when you've been through stuff. I mean, it's like you and me, you know, when we see each other and go, you know, it impacts you in such a way, and especially, you know, when we did Merrily, you know, it's a long, long time ago now. Julian's got a couple of kids, I've got a couple of kids that have nearly left home. You know, Dan's about to take over the RSC. So Julian and I thought that we'd go along and see him. But you know, you go, that is what Merrily was all about, it's life. Taking you on that journey. So when we see each other, it feels so powerful because a lot of life has happened between then and now.
I think there's something possibly about the fabric of the show that lends itself to what you're talking about. The Maria's production has had a second lease on life, as many of you will probably know. In New York, it was off-Broadway late last year and is moving to Broadway in September. And when I saw it in New York, December 30th matinee, it was the first performance of the run where Mary, Lizzie Mendez, was off, and so her understudy went on at the very last minute. And what was really extraordinary about it was that Jonathan Groff playing Franklin and Daniel Radcliffe playing Charlie were so there for her. And when she sang Now You Know, Dan Radcliffe was right there, and he was like this. And when she finished, he gave like a little clap from the side of the stage. And you just thought, but this is what the show is describing, this kind of cohesion and tightness. Did you feel that with your production?
Thank you. Yes. Well, yes. I just got to say, you just pinged a memory in my head. Daniel Radcliffe came to see me and Dan in Sun in the Park with George in New York. I remember talking to Daniel Radcliffe's dad, and he was just about to do Equus on Broadway. And I went, are they looking, you know, we're just having this chat. I went, are they looking after him? And he went, yeah, they're really looking after him. I said, because, you know, they'll try and get him a one-bedroom apartment And, you know, me and Dan have both got a one-bedroom apartment with a pull-out bed, so asked for that. And he went, well, he's got his own brownstone. Of course he bloody well had. I completely forgot that he was this superstar. But he, I don't know how, did he get in touch with my agent? I don't know, it was an odd thing, but I remember when we were doing Merrily in the West End, he got in touch with my agent about wanting to come and see the show. So I arranged tickets for him to come and see the show, and he came to see the show, and he came back afterwards and had a chat. He said, oh, I just have always loved this show. So when Maria said to me, oh, Dan Radcliffe's playing that, I went, oh, I got him tickets to see our production. So it's kind of funny, isn't it? This little, the worlds within the worlds. But no, I'd never met Damien Humbly before, and he played Charlie, and he was brilliant. And Mark Umbers, who I've known for years, was just a gorgeous Frank. And yes, we were tight. It's a special gig. It's a special gig. And I still obviously am in touch with them now.
Because, well, I'm sure everyone here knows this, but the show is told in reverse chronology, and I'm sure, although I should have asked Stephen Sommer about this, and for some reason I don't think I ever did, but the show premiered on Broadway in 1981, so he was obviously writing it in 79, 80, 81, and I would be very surprised because he was such an incredible Anglophile. Pinter's Betrayal, also told in reverse order, opened at the National in 1978, and I would bet you anything that he had seen that, and that would have been in his head when the idea came to adapt a play that had been in New York in 1934. So he would have had a sense of how it could work with Pinter. So the question arising is about rehearsing the show. Did you ever, in unpacking the narrative, did you ever do it from the beginning, which is the ending, to the ending, which is the beginning? How did you do the scene work?
Well, in our production, we really wanted to do it, and Maria said we would do it, but we never did it. We never did it in the timeline order. We never did it. So there's a question, did you?
I was going to ask you, because I thought there must be a choice for the director that in one world you could just rehearse it in the correct chronology, and you end up with them as the older people. But what you would miss out on then, in our experience, was absolutely immense, because it was weeks before we got to that final scene on the rooftop. It felt like weeks, and when we did, we couldn't get through it. Because we knew what was going to be happening to these young people. And we were helpless. I mean, we literally could not stop crying. And I think that's why I was going to ask you if in yours it was there. You know, it's the only way to rehearse it. If I was directing, I'd probably go, let's be clever and like let's do it the other way. And then and also by the time you've rehearsed the rest of the play and you get to that scene, you don't need to rehearse it because it's just like it's so just there. Yeah. And be excited about the rest of the
you
night.
at Guildhall, where of course you're training at Guildhall at the time, so the rehearsal process might have been a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a weird thing with third year because, you know, as I was saying, you know, people are missing days because they're working on other things, you know, they've got an audition over here, an audition over there, which in many ways is like a brilliant analogy for everything in itself, you know, going out. I remember going out for one of my first ever auditions, you know, and then coming back in the afternoon and rehearsing merrily, and you know, that kind of fervour for the industry. So it was quite a bitty rehearsal process, and I mean, I just remember, I'm not sure, well, I don't know, maybe with all sorts of shows, but I just remember feeling like you just never have enough time to like, you could go on forever. It's just so rich. You could go on forever, and you know, rehearse it for months. I mean, it's so. And I thought the same thing. Wouldn't it be nice to do it the other way? But then a friend of mine, a great friend of mine who played Charlie in the show, and still really, really close friend of mine, we read some scenes the other way around, but the brilliance of Sondheim, I think, with Merrily is obviously, even though it's reverse chronology, the way the show is, the momentum of the show, it still is driving. It's just driving backwards. So you're doing it forwards. You actually, it all feels icky and odd, and there's nothing. So, but it's such a tricky piece to do. Yeah. Oh my God, that opening doors. That, I mean, honestly, yeah, it is. But it is, complete terror. Terror having to do that in front of an audience the very first time, especially in third year. You don't get previews and all these things, and so you've got a whole sea of industry people who are meeting you for the first time, and you have to go on and do opening doors. Oh God!
My way on opening doors one evening, and I looked straight out into the audience, and Ben Daniels looked straight back at me, and I went. Just literally spoke rubbish.
I saw My Fair Lady and all those things. It's like one of those horrible lines that you can never have to get out of speed. 100%.
And smoking.
And timing.
Either be smoking and typing.
I'd like to hear a little bit about the challenges of unpacking these different roles, and then after that, unpacking the score. I think whenever I used to talk to Steve Simon about Merrily, it would inevitably come up that Franklin was, by sort of shared agreement, possibly, I think his word was the most slippery of the three roles. It's a tricky role. It's a very hard role with which to gain sympathy, because you see him at the beginning as a sellout. And I think what was brilliant about your performance, Jonathan Groff's about to come on Broadway, Mark's, Julian's, was there's a difference between being a bad person, which he isn't, and being a weak person, which he probably is. And I think what was wonderful about your performance, Ollie, was that you never sat in judgment of him at all. You just inhabited him at whatever point in the reverse journey he happened to be. But I wonder if you could just say something about how you do play rewinding the tape of that character, and then we'll hear about Mary.
I mean, I think it's... Well, firstly, I would say, in a way, it's a perfect acting exercise, because it's all about, given circumstances, of sort of where you're coming from into the scene, rather than, and playing them in isolation, what's just happened to that person, rather than worrying maybe too much about a journey, I guess. I mean, it is really hard. Franklin is definitely really hard. He doesn't have really a big solo number, like Mary, I think, has kind of all the best singy bits, and Charlie, of course, has Franklin Shepherd Inc. within like 10 minutes of the show, brings the house down, and you've just got to sit there as Franklin and just, watch whoever's doing it be absolutely extraordinarily good. Well, you barely know my character yet.
That song is such a challenge for Franklin, because Charlie is letting rip, and Franklin has to sit there and take it in.
Which is brilliant, I think I love writing like that, when you just actually got to sit and take it. I think that's great, and actually that's probably the key thing with Franklin, in a way, is, I felt, that it's how things happen to him, and all the stuff that's going on, all the kind of toxicity within him that kind of, that's a perfect example. He doesn't actually say very much in that scene, but he's just seething inside, and there's so much pain. So much pain in that role. So it's hard. It's definitely hard, but I think the key thing is it's going to pay off. You're just going to trust that you get to the end when you have the wonderful thing on the rooftop, and then you're all on the same level playing field by the end, and the audience have gone on that journey with you. And as much as they kind of find it hard to maybe warm to you in the beginning, it's all in there by the end. So yeah.
And I've always thought with Mary, and I was reminded of this afresh just last autumn, we were talking about pain. I mean, it's almost, I think, in a way, Chekhovian, the pain of this character who, like somebody at Uncle Vanya, carries a sort of unrequited love, really, through her days, and will that ever be sated? And you see at the end, which is the beginning, that she's arrived at a place of bitterness and and whatever, but then rewinding the tape, there's something much fresher, more youthful, freer, and you've got to honor both sides of that. So.
Yeah, I think there are clues in the younger Mary as well, that she's somebody that doesn't think she deserves to get the man, the book deal, she's definitely somebody who is, whether it's fear of success or failure, it's difficult to tell, but she never tells Frank how she feels, and he never guesses, because she's just always there as his friend. And in Now You Know, I mean, she absolutely could go, "Oh, damn me, you stupid bastard," But she goes, "Okay, so life is shit, right? Okay, get back on your feet. That's what life is all about." So I think she's extremely witty and acerbic and wise, but I think has extremely low self-confidence. It's that combination that you see it as the younger person. That's what's so brilliant about the way she's written, is that I think there are little hints that if life doesn't quite work out for her, she's going to end up bitter, in a very big fat suit, in my case, and quite drunk. But life could have turned out differently from that girl that we meet at the end of the play. But she never, it was unrequited. To spend your whole life like that is pretty shit.
I mean, when you think about her, I think, especially that first scene, she's so smart, savvy, smart, and Mark used to do this thing which was lovely. I can't remember, it was one of her wisecracks on the roof. And he used to just really look at me like "You're someone," which really kind of fueled the show for me. I never said anything to him, but I thought, thank you for that look, because I think it was that look for my Mary that made her think, he thinks I'm fucking great, this guy.
Because I was thinking, Jenna, what must be really extraordinary for you about playing Mary is that when you played young Sally in Follies, of course, in Follies with all four principal characters, you've got their bifurcated selves, the younger and the older versions, but they're played by two different people. It's as if in Merrily you've got the bifurcated Mary, but they're played by the same person.
Yeah.
So it would be as if in Follies you were playing young Sally and
old Sally. Older Sally.
So that's such an incredible ask, I think.
Oh, but it's a great part for showing your muscles. And Maria really wanted me to be acerbic, alcoholic, beyond repair, absolutely at the end of my tether with him, because we split up with Charlie, and everything he says is like, beep you, embarrassing him, like, wake up. So to start at that point, I could see the audience in the chocolate factory like, "Oh, don't like her," but I thought, yeah, but you will like her. Because you'll see why she's like that. It's been so difficult. And my daughter would never come and see, still doesn't like coming to see me on the stage, and I said, "Please come and see Merrily," because obviously my love for Sondheim, I'm like, it's important to me. And she came when she was about 5, and she came to see it at the Pinter, and managed to get her in a box, and she came with Ray. And it didn't dawn on me that Act 1, all she saw was her mother screaming, crying, lying around on the floor.
She just thought, "Oh, that's Mum, I reckon."
That's my mum. But it got to the interval, I thought, now she's gonna see me being lovely. And Ray texted me and he went, "But we've gone home." When I got home, I said, "What happened?" And apparently she got through Act 1, and like Josephina Gabrielle was giving everything to this box, and all the cast were really excited. And Act 2, nobody there. What's happened? But apparently they went for an ice cream, and Betsy went, "I'm doing very well, aren't I, Daddy?" And he went, "Yeah, you're doing very well." Eating her ice cream, said, "Okay, we'll go back in." "What?" "There's another act," and she went, "No." She went, no. And they went home. So I do it every night for Betsy now. She's 14. "And so this is my number." I'm talking to her, shut up.
Now, Nigel, in your Remarkable Follies, the remarkable Melda Staunton said, and she said many a time, about Sondheim being the sort of Shakespeare of America, the American musical and American theater in general. And I just wonder, from your point of view and when working with actors on the songs, the level of investigation, how far do you go with them on it, and also where does he, or did he enter into it with you?
I think, certainly on Follies, there's so many versions of things like Broadway Baby and think, some cabaret versions and recordings, and actually it's quite amazing when you go back to the page, you think, blimey, a lot of these have slipped quite far away from the kind of text, as it were. So we tried to keep it quite dry for the first week, like literally crotchets, quavers, 8 notes, and really try and stop people acting too soon, actually, because the tendency is to just try and go there with subtext immediately. The themes are so complex, the characters are so complex, and actually to keep, Don Cook away from the actors, because if the director's in the room, people will want to impress the director. So trying to keep them quite dry rehearsals for as long as possible, so you can get, the complexity into your bones. It's not a kind of cerebral thing, it's actually in your muscle memory. And I think once that's in there, especially with something like Merrily as well, once you've got it in muscle memory, then you can play. But I think if you try and do both things at the same time, and you try and start to investigate character, and you're trying to sort of remember, as it were, rather than just feel rhythms, I don't think you stand a chance with something like Follies, certainly Merrily. The opening of Company, which we did, do you remember the opening night? Which I sort of quit being an MD in the interval of that opening night, and had to be talked around. We had a local guitarist, which was a mistake, and in the opening vamp, he came out, I was remoted, you guys were all on stage, and it's like, da-ga-da, 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 and this very nervous local guitarist came out of the vamp on his own, without me asking him to. And I had no contact with you guys. And then, so in the distance, I just heard lots of people going, Bobby! Everyone was just lobbing Bobbies in. And it was like time stood still. I thought it was about half an hour of people just singing Bobby. And I was going through like different careers in my head. And it's Jane Casey, she went, Bobby, come on over for dinner. I was like, bar 35, bar 36, bar 36. So yeah, it was a low point. But anyway, that's complexity. It was only press night. We got away with that. Oh yeah, the chain came off within the first 30 seconds of press night. Anyway.
What is some privilege for the three of you? I assume, Ollie, you didn't have this extraordinary opportunity, but the three of you to have had notes from Mr. Sondheim, conversations. When I was researching the Donmar book, there were all sorts of incredible stories about, for instance, after the first preview of the Adrian Lester Company, when Steve Sondheim went up to Sam Mendes' office, and he was in tears, and Sam thought it was because he thought that it was so dreadful, he was going to shut it down. And it was the opposite. He said, I've never heard the show before till that. So you must all have various moments. That Follies must have been so crucial for Steve, because he was never to see the show on that scale again.
There are lots, but the last one, actually the last time I saw him, we threw, I think it was the penultimate night, the National, and we were throwing a party for him in the, whatever that restaurant is, front of house, and my dressing room was right next to the pass door for that, so I was the first one into the party, so it's just him and Jeff. And I got in, and he was in floods, and he got up and he grabbed me, and he, ugly cried onto me. And he said, I just wish Jim could have seen what we wrote, which is James Goldman. And it was kind of extraordinary. But yeah, there were quite a lot of things like that, which, you just never forget what a privilege. So.
It's a reminder of just how much love and always the respect for his collaborators, for his book writers. I've never worked with another composer that is so always got his collaborators back and is always going, oh yes, my show, but James Lapine wrote it. He never takes the glory, and there's always that.
We had it when Jonathan Tunick was over, And so we had a sort of, I made a speech with the orchestra and some photos, and I made a sort of thank you speech to Steve, and I said, but actually tonight it's about Tunic. And he said, yeah, Tunic's the best, Tunic's the best. It's like, it's incredible.
But of course, he was always open to new approaches, new interpretations. And Jenna, widening out just a little bit beyond Merrily for a moment, when you and Dan Emmons took Some Department to Broadway, that must have been a really extraordinary thing for both of you, because there's a show that was made in New York, first at Polaris Horizons, where they did the workshops, and then obviously with Mandy Patinkin and Bernadette Peters. And doing it in London is one thing, but doing it on Broadway is another, 9 streets from where it had been at the Booth Theatre. What was that like?
Terrifying. You know, Dan and I felt like, well, what's that? You take the eggs to somewhere or other. What's that saying? Dogs to Newcastle. Coals to Newcastle. Dogs to Newcastle. Yes. Coals to Newcastle. We felt a bit, and especially as our director said, in like the second week of rehearsals in New York, I'm thinking we're going to lose your accents in Act 1. Just be American. And Dan was like, well then cast Americans. Why are we here? And eventually he relented on that. But no, it was amazing. It was amazing. And it was kind of, the sweet thing was that because we were in New York, Steve Sondheim used to come all the time. And like even before our last matinee, both Dan and I got a few lovely notes, you know. Don't forget to do this, and when you're doing that, remember that it's about that, but otherwise, just have a great time. But he was always thinking. I think that there was someone saying that when we were teching it in London, he was kind of going, "What's the dirt on those two?" Did Dan ever tell you that? Apparently, he was going, "Do they get on?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, they get on fine." I think he was waiting for us to turn into divas, and just saying to him, the British way isn't like that. I don't know what your experience has been, but you know, genuinely, I think both Dan and I, and what I've always felt with Sondheim is it's so bloody well written. It's always, everything's been thought out. You don't have to invent anything. Just learn it, do it properly, and let it do its thing, because it's perfect.
See it? I'm sure they did.
Yes, they did.
And?
Oh, lovely stories, man. Bernadette came on our press night, I think. Mandy didn't come on our press night, but I was in my dressing room, and there was, after a matinee, I think, there was a knock on my dressing room door, and I went, hello, and I was like in my bloomers and stuff. It's Mandy Patinkin. Excuse my language. Oh, fuck off. Who's that? So, and then there was this kind of weird silence. And then I could feel them walking away. I went to my dresser, I said, do you want to check? So I went to the door, I opened the door, and it was Mandy Patinkin. And he was just sobbing, just, oh, the show. I said, have you met Dan yet? He went, no, I must. I went, yes. So I knocked on Dan's door, it was over the way, and I literally opened the door, and Dan went, hello, and Mandy went, whoa. But apparently he didn't come to the press night, and he didn't come to some other thing, but he turned up on that day at Studio 54, and Mandy Patinkin went, I'd like to get a ticket for the show. And they were like, yeah, we've only got like on this back row of the dress or something. Anyway, he sat there, but the story is that he sang the whole story. He sang the whole, so I mean, not like loudly, but he was lovely, and Bernadette was lovely.
Because with your production, that must have been so important for Steve Sondheim, because we knew that Son of the Park worked, and we know that Follies works now, but that was an unknown quantity. So there must have been real kind of, I don't know if anxiety is too strong a word, uncertainty maybe.
There was definitely
and how did Steve
yeah.
Sondheim, if he did, express that?
Well, he wanted Michael to do the other version, and Michael really insisted, and Steve relented, and then he was so unbelievably supportive once he saw it, and I think he was really grateful to Michael. I don't know whether he would have seen that Guildhall production, but as far as he was concerned, this version didn't work with young people, because young people couldn't possibly get into the headspace of the older characters. So I think Michael said, well, we're going to just cast a couple of people who are quite experienced, but look really young. Not, but short. And he was just, I think he was just exactly as you described, you know, when he's happy, it's the best feeling in the world, and when he gives you one of his bear hugs. And I mean, he arrived at our rehearsal and said, you know, it's mainly people that have just left drama school, and he said, God has arrived. And we all went, but he was such an incredibly generous soul. As of course he'd have to be when you read, you know, and watch his work.
Did he kind of stay and watch the production progress over time? Because it must have been so moving for him to see the reception. And then, of course, what was remarkable, which is astonishing to think back on, at the Olivier Awards that year, you and Dan both won, but the production won Best Musical over The Witches of Eastwick and The Beautiful Game. In other words, a Cameron Mackintosh production and the new Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, big, huge West End behemoths, and here was Little Merrily of the Donmar,
yes,
emerging triumphant. That must have been...
And I think it was Best New Musical,
yeah,
wasn't it? So which was quite... I mean, there were a few people that were a little bit cross about that because it had been done before, but I think it was the first time that this version had been done. So, I can't remember whether he came back at the end. Now my memory is right at the beginning of the production during previews, and I lost my voice during previews, and that story that you were talking about, now you know that another Daniel was, this Daniel actually did sing it, because my voice almost went completely in Charlie, that first big number, and got off stage, and we said, well, we've got to go on, something will happen, and Daniel Evans, being Daniel Evans, knew every single lyric, and sang it. Sang it. Without ever having rehearsed it. And it's quite extraordinary. He's weird. But Sondheim was so, when I came off and I was crying, my eyes out of course, and he just put his arm around me and he went, it happens.
Yeah. And you know, he always said, and I'm sure he said to you, he certainly said to journalists, that he valued actors who sing more than singers who may or may not be able to act. And of course got all of that from, you know, the present company and many, many others. What are your sort of Sondheim wish lists? I mean, Ollie, at this point in your life, you've got so many roles on the horizon. What's the, yeah, you're the young Ben or whatever. What's on your wish list?
Oh, I mean, well, I like all the, you know, all of them, other than all of them. I would probably pick, well, Bobby and Company, adore that. Sweeney in Sweeney. So I'd actually love to do Franklin again. You know, I mean, you could do any of the roles 100 times and again just find something new. But you know, I'd love to do Franklin again. Yeah, any of those. Bobby, Sweeney, Franklin, and I will die, or none of them, and just, you know, get to watch you guys do them for the rest of my life, and I'd die happy. So yeah.
Nigel, which Sondheim show would you like most to conduct?
Sunday. And because I was meant to do the Jake one.
Oh, the Jake Gyllenhaal one that was going to come to the Savoy.
Got as far as casting it, and so I have unfinished business with Sunday.
Is there any news about that?
Hello, is there any news about that?
This is the summer time. You'd like to do?
Oh God, I would dream about playing Mrs. Lovett. I would, Gypsy, obviously, but you know, I would have to really, oh God, whip myself into shape and fight her off. Alternate nights.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, how about Sharon and Rex? But Jenna, well, I mean, it seems an obvious one for you would be a return to Follies. You've done Young Sally.
You know my history with that. One day, I'll play bloody. Do you know what? I don't care anymore. I actually did Follies, interestingly, in Tangier. How camp is that? Jamie, what's his face? Who's lovely Jamie? No, actor. Jamie Parker played Buddy.
Okay.
Christina Ebersole.
Christina
Ebersole.
Ebersole.
No, she played Good Times and Bum. Carlotta. Rob Ashford directed it.
In Tangier?
Yeah. Hayden Gwynn was a brilliant Phyllis. Bruxus Manchkishknishnish. No, he was Listen to the Rain on the Roof. Fabulous. So it was like amazing. But do you know what happened? And this was very interesting. I did it after my history with wanting to be Sally, and I actually thought, I don't want to play Sally. I thought she's got great numbers, but the audience, I could feel the hostility, like I was a bunny boiler. And I thought,
it's a tricky part.
it's a tricky part, and I suddenly thought I'd see what Imelda was trying to do with it. But then I remember Julia being so brilliant. So I don't know, but I thought I would need to play someone that got a few more laughs.
Why were you and Hayden Gwynn and Christina Ebersole in Tangier?
She would asked us to do it.
I guess Tangier is the next Boston.
We did it with books, but it was all costumed, and it was there's a whole big thing going on in Tangier. These very wealthy, extraordinary people and designers. It was like a fever dream. It was amazing, but we had a lovely time.
Now, we should finish in a few minutes, but I thought, Ollie, it might be nice because there are a lot of people here for the National Youth Music Theatre, and I gather you were part of that.
I was, yeah.
So maybe you can tell them and us what it was like.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Jeremy Walker, who is here, was kind of the man I knew behind all the magic that goes on with NYT, and it was amazing. I was about 15 or 16. And it was my first little kind of taste of, I'd not done, I wasn't a child actor, I'd done it, so it was the closest thing I'd ever come to anything remotely professional. And it was amazing. I'm sure the people here who are part of it right now know that it's, the thing that I really took away, it just comes back to Merrily again. It's about a generation being part of a movement and a body and a generation of artists who, over lunch are talking about, I remember having a wonderful conversation. I've just thought about this, where with being this other guy I actually haven't seen for years. He's actually gone on and been massively successful. But both of us just sat down over like our packed lunches and just listed, all of the roles that we wanted to play. And, no matter how outlandish, and it was, just that kind of unbridled optimism, and it's prior to the inevitability of also having to think about the business and there is more, you've got to have your professional actor hat on sometimes. But at that age, it's just wonderful to do something that's sort of professional, but also just about the love and the passion, and it's in its purest form. So yeah, I loved NYT, and I'm glad it's still going and doing Merrily. They're doing Merrily this summer, which is extraordinary.
And I think to finish, there's a wonderful song in Merrily called Growing Up, and of course one of the things that strikes me, and I'm sure all of you, as we obviously get older each time we see it, certainly for me, and I would imagine for you, we connect to the material in different ways, because of course we're at different points on the spectrum of the narrative contained within the show. So I just wonder if each of you could just say something about kind of how your lives have intersected with the show, and maybe how the show seems to you now compared to when you did it. Ollie, you sort of already answered this in a way, and it was only 4 years ago, so it may not be, but you know, it's a show that really you live with. It's no surprise to me that Richard Linklater is directing a film of it that is taking 20 plus years to film. Because how is, you know, with Paul Mescal as Franklin, Beanie Feldstein as Mary, and Ben Platt as Charlie. So amazing. So,
I mean, yeah. I mean, the little I'll say is that particular song, growing up, I like really remember almost out of body experience. It sounds very like ooh, but that's what theatre does. That's the beauty of it. I remember the last night singing that song, and all the people in the wings, you know, all the whole 28 of us in the year in the wings, and looking out on an auditorium like this, is at the Silk Street one at Guildhall, singing these words about, you know, things change and, you know, you reshaping them, rearranging them, growing up, you know, you're constantly kind of shifting your dreams and twisting your dreams and trying to just give your dreams life. I don't know, and I felt a connection to something long in the future that I knew that moment I would remember this, you know, and so that's what I think about a lot. You know, those great shows like this, it just, you feel like you're in a dialogue with yourself, your whole self, your whole life. So yeah, that's my little tidbit.
That's a beautiful response. So Nigel, you've not conducted Marilyn, but you've known the show over decades. How does the thematic of it resonate with you?
I love both your productions, are incredible, but I do remember seeing with students for the first time doing it. I think it was Mount View did it, and I went with Victoria Wood and took her. And I remember getting to the last scene, and they must be like 18, 19, and it was like completely floored me. I mean, and it really took me by surprise actually. I mean, I saw through both of yours as well, but there's something really profound about students performing it, which, I mean, it helped out the theatre, you know, it's really, so yeah, it's quite it affects you in a very profound way, doesn't it, I think, as a show.
And what about the two of you just living with the landscape of the show? I remember very movingly, Sam, going to the 10th anniversary performance that you guys did? And I remember thinking at the time, how long will this go on? Will it be like a 20th anniversary performance, a 30th anniversary performance? You know, what an extraordinary, I mean, you and Dan and Julian seem forever young, so I'm looking forward to the 50th anniversary performance.
Well, I think I'm now 10 years older than the oldest Mary, when she's at her oldest. But and we were talking before about approaching the part, and I remember thinking, you know, how does a 45-year-old sit? How does what does a 45-year-old feel like? Quite young, actually. But it was a fantastic opportunity going back 10 years after we finished, and some people in our company had given up. Some people had had kids, got married, moved to a different country. Yeah, everybody came back. Everybody came back. And yeah, it kind of did, but with a renewed layer because of life experience. And just sort of listening to it and thinking about it over the last, you know, sort of couple of days, knowing that we were coming in here, I thought, gosh, it's happened again, that it's washing over me in a different way, and I felt really, really emotional. Just sort of all the themes that at 32, I got some of it. At 42, I got quite a bit more, and now, at 43, you know, you get a hell of a lot more. So it's just brilliant. I mean, I just listening to the lyrics more this time, certainly even of songs that Mary wasn't involved in, just, God, how did he know? Could he get into the heads of those 19-year-olds, you know, sort of on the rooftop, looking forward to the rest of their lives?
I guess he did that, didn't he? Yeah. With Mary Rogers. Yeah.
So, Jenna, how has the thematic evolved just with you in terms of your...
Oh, crikey. Oh, I mean, it's all one, and they've all got so many special things. And I remember doing Merrily after having done Sunday and thinking this is a real privilege to do Merrily, which almost broke him, and we almost lost him. He was so ruined by it emotionally, and then he writes Summer in the Park with George. And so to be lucky enough to feel that hope and inspiration, and yeah, we all mess up, but look at, stay true to what you are, and friendship abides, and love, and all the things that Merrily is, and then doing Sunday, which is just this little broken artist on the floor that can't connect because he's too frightened of being criticised, which he was so horribly with Merrily. But all of his shows are just like those hidden crazy boxes that he loves so much, those puzzles. You think you know what you're doing, then another little door opens up and you walk down that little alleyway and you go, oh, I can open that door to this character. And then there's another little alleyway. That's the beauty of his work, of all of his work. Somebody said to me years ago when we were doing Guys and Dolls, it's boring doing Guys and Dolls because you get, every character gets what they want, they mean what they say what they want, and that's it. You do Sondheim, and it's ever-shifting, everything.
It is like Shakespeare.
Yeah, it is like Shakespeare.
It is that same thing, you just could make any choice.
And you're held. You know, Shakespeare's so well written. If you learn the songs properly, if you learn the script properly, and the most important thing to Steve was his lyric. You know, you can sing any old notes. He would not any old notes, but the lyric was king with him. And he said that to me. But he was saying, you know, as long as the intention's right, that the lyric has to be right. So once you get all those things right, like Shakespeare, if you don't try and bend it, you can kind of go anywhere with it. The structure is so solid and brilliant. It carries it, and that's, again, another thing that I loved about him. And so many writers, I wish they'd had this strength of understanding that their work can translate into different cultures, and he loved a new director going, I'm going to do this with it. Go ahead, do it, and I'll come and see it. And often he would go, I would never have thought of that, that's fabulous.
Well, it's so wonderful, Jenna, that you talk the image of the doors keep opening, and we already talked about that wonderful song from early, Opening Doors, and it's as if that's what his work did throughout. And that's what we've done today with Merrily. We've opened a door into reminiscence and reflection, and thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Lovely to be here. We were here last year in sort of similar circumstances. But it's great to be here. I've been the CEO, Artistic Director of NYMT for the last 12 years. Before that, I was a musical director with a company and had the great privilege to be musical director on Sweeney Todd. And I had a 32-piece orchestra of young people, and it was awesome. So what's even better, though, is when you're CEO, you get to choose the programme. And so a few years later, I was able to choose what I personally believe to be the greatest of all Sondheim musicals, Summer in the Park with George. The fact that I might have been slightly inspired by the version with Daniel Evans and somebody Russell is neither here nor there. And the fact that maybe their performance of Move On is perhaps one of the greatest Sondheim performances of all time is neither here nor there. It's now my last year as CEO, and so I've been particularly indulgent in my choices. Yesterday we were here with members of our cast, Kiss Me Kate, I'm not good at technology, and we were performing in various parts of the museum. And Kiss Me Kate is one of my favourite classic musicals. But to round off my time, Merrily had to be the choice. And as you've heard, originally it was with young people, and I tend to think that that is the best way to do it because it is so much more moving when you get to the end of the show. Anyway, my main reason really for being here is to explain that the three amazing young people that you're going to be hearing today, you would expect to be our Frank, our Charlie, and our Mary. Frank is somewhere in Jordan at the moment. He's on his gap year, he's travelling and apparently climbing Everest, so I hope he gets back down again. I know Everest is not in Jordan, by the way. Maddie is playing the part of Mary, you'll hear her. Thomas is playing the part of Charlie, and you'll hear him. And I'm very grateful to Jack, who confusingly is also going to sing a song by Charlie. He's standing in, and then the three of them will be performing Old Friends. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you for coming, and wish them luck. Thanks very much.
I'm Nigel, who will be leading the masterclass.
Hey, old friend, what do you say? Old friend, make it okay. Old friend, give the old friendship a break. Why so grim? We're going on forever. You, me, him, too many lives are at stake. Friends, this long has to mean something strong. So if our old friends long, shouldn't an old friend come through? It's us, old friend. What's to discuss, old friend? Here's to us. Who's like us? Damn few.
so beautiful. So beautiful. Terrible, isn't it? Young people. Tits out! It was gorgeous. I mean, all I'm going to do, and all these, you know, I don't know, I'm just an actor. And this is just to play with, because it's perfect. Honest to God, it's perfect what you do. You sing it beautifully, and your connection to it is beautiful. So I'm just going to throw this in as another little texture to possibly play with. And also it's hard because it's a song to someone, isn't it? So suddenly singing it as a solo number, you take away the other person in the scene. So would you like me to be, I mean, I don't know what Charlie says, the lines, but in terms of someone to perform it to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't be freaked out. And the only thing I was going to, where I think you can play a little bit maybe, is I think at this point in her life, she wants the friendship to come back together, and it's fractured, but she is also a semi-functioning alcoholic, and her job in that threesome, in that friendship, is to be the comedy glue. When they get bickery with each other, when they get angry, she comes in and goes, "But what about this?" And they go, "Oh yeah, that's hilarious." But in doing that, that's what's so brilliant about Mary. Every time she does that, she's chopping off a piece of herself in order to keep this little gang together. So I'm thinking, shall we try doing it where, for Mary, she's trying to cheer Charlie up, and she's kind of being a bit more, I don't care, but hey, wasn't our friendship good? Come on, we've got to just, he's messed up. Yes, he's messed up. Let's forget about it. He's like that. Let's just remember this great time. And the last verse. So I think we'll just try and think that you're trying to do the person that puts the bandage on and doesn't want it to get too deep. Don't get too deep in your head, Charlie. Our friendship was great, and there was this, and there was that, and there was the other thing. But of course, in the end, that beautiful lyric that took me so long to work out what it's about, and even then I'm not sure, is that thing of realising this idealised version of their friendship. Did it exist ever, really? Everyone has this rosy view of what their lives were like together, but was it really like that? Am I imagining it? We all do this thing where we go, yeah, my days at junior school were amazing and I had all these pals, but actually if you zeroed back to your days at junior school, you were probably alone a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? And I think that little bit, that last bit is a kind of realisation of, everyone says this, our lives are fabulous, but are they? Maybe they're not. A little crack appears in her facade that she's built up to protect herself. So I would just say, let's have a bit of fun. Don't worry about the notes because they're all in you. So even if you go, oh, I don't want to belt it in her face, then just be lighter with it in order to free yourself up to be more fun. And let's just see.
Hey, old friend, what do you say? Old friend, make it okay. Old friend, give the old friendship a break. Why so grim? We're going on forever. You, me, him, too many lives are at stake. Friends, this long has to mean something strong. So if our old friend's wrong, shouldn't an old friend come through? It's us, old friend. What's to discuss, old friend? Here's to us, who's like us. Kids and cities and trees were nice. Everything. I don't know who we are anymore, and I'm starting not to care. Look at us, Charlie. Nothing's the way that it was. I wanted the way that it was. Help me stop remembering then. Don't you remember? It was good. It was really good. Help me out, Charlie. Make it like it was. Nothing's the way that it was. I wanted the way that it was. God knows things were easier then. The trouble is, Charlie, that's what everyone does. Blames the way it is. On the way it was. On the way it
And you know, I was just remembering, what does he say at the end of that? He goes, oh my God, Mary, I'm still in love with him. Looking at your little face, and he goes, you're still in love with him. Heartbreaking. You'll have the best time. You will make friends for the rest of your life, as you found out from me and Sam saying, and you are Mary, so just whoever gets to play the part then is your part for that period of time. You've got the keys, and it doesn't matter what anyone else has done, and your experience that will drive you. But just remember, we've all been there. Unrequited love. How painful is unrequited love? And she has this for decades and decades, and I can see it in your face and in the way you are. You'll be wonderful. That was beautiful.
And soon we're humming along, and that's called writing a song. Then he goes, and I go, and the phone goes, ding! And he goes, mutter, 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 yes, Jerome, mutter, no, Jerome, mutter, 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 that's Lloyd, Jerome, mutter, 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 do it, Jerome, click, sorry, Charlie. So I go, and he goes, and I go, and soon we're tapping away. Sorry, Charlie, it's the secretary, Mr. on the intercom. Yes, Miss, it's a messenger. Thanks, Miss, will you tell him to wait? Will you order the car? Will you call the bank? Will you wire the calls? Sorry, Charlie. I'm gonna sell the stock. I'm gonna buy the rights. Let me put you on hold. Thanks, this is the interview. Thanks, this is where you tell me to wait. Where you wire the car, where you set up the coast, where you wore the bank. So the blood telephone links, the top test sold, and the rest of us, he keeps on holding into making movies. And it's now a corporation, right? So I play at home with my wife and kids, and I wait to hear the movie bids, and I've got little sailboats, and I'm into meditation. Right? He flies off to California. I discuss him with my shrink. That's the story of the way we were, me and Franklin shepherding. I'm surprised at how much I like this. I promise to be honest if you all promise to handle the lawsuit. Oh, money! Did I say money? No, I like money a lot. I mean, it's better than nuts. But when it's money, when you're into money, and you should be. See, Frank does the money thing very well, but there are people who do it better. And Frank does the music thing very well. You know what? No one does it better. Still, the telephones ring and the buzzers buzz, and I really don't know what he does, but he makes a ton of money. And a lot of it for me, right? So I think, okay, and I start a play, and he somehow knows, because right away he's hi, buddy, want to write a show? Got a great idea, we don't know the rights for the 2-week out, and then turn around on the guaranteed runs of 4% of the billing cost. There I am in California, talking deals and turning pink. Back in business, and I am just that. Back with Franklin Shepherd. Wait a minute. That's right. Very sneaky how it happens. Much more sneaky than you think. Start with nothing but a song to sing. Next to Franklin Shepherd. Wait a minute. I'm getting in too deep here. Nothing permanent has happened. Just a temporary kick. Friendship's something you don't really lose. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let me lose the greatest composer a lyricist ever had. Stop him. Phone him. I'll just stop him on the street. You'll recognize him. He's the one going through his checkbook. And tell that man to get back to his piano. Very sneaky how it happens. Every day you're on the brink. First the prizes, then the interviews. Oh my God, I think it's happened! Stop me quick before I sink! One more triumph that I can't refuse. In case you notice, this is my first time on TV and my last. Here's the point, whatever happens, then we'll all go have a drink. That's the guy I love, the Belarus. Inside, mother, Craig Jerome, get the president. There's a crazy man on my TV screen. Inside, inside Franklin Shepherd. Just find care of any bank, USA, Inc.
There's been a blip. My little advice that I give myself all the time. I've just finished a play last night, and in it I had a 6-page monologue near the end of the play. And I remember one time just going, I have no idea where I am in this story. I want to revolve, and I'm going around, and then I kind of made up a bit and then found my way back. But I always, then this comes in my head, cancel and continue. cancel and continue. It always feels so much bigger to the person when you've stumbled over a line or you've come in and you've saved it so well and then cancelled and continued. And I just think we, as an audience, we're still with you 100%. So good lesson in that. It's such an amazing song, isn't it? It's so amazing. I'm going to play with you. Where in your head, where do you see Franklin next to you on the sofa? Which side? That side?
That side, not the movie.
Let's do it. To really sell the song. But what's sometimes so brilliant at is that all that piano, just play the intro. That's his energy, right? So you don't have to play that energy. That's what's going on inside him. He's there on this. It's just a nice thing to go, okay, let's try this as another opening into the story. He's there. Mary said, come along, please do this interview. He's great, you'll have a great time. No, winds me up, he always lets me down at the last minute. No, it's going to be great, and you can talk about X, Y, and Z. So he's turned up in sufferance. He doesn't really want to be there, but also it's his best pal. I'm your best pal. But he's at this time, arrogance, success, ease, and your neurotic, your music underneath you is but you want to come across as in control, right? So try and stay in control as much as possible, but put yourself in a position that your best mate, all your life, since you've known your best mate, throws a spanner in the works all the time. So really imagine, right, that you're not doing this big number. You don't know where the number's going to go. You're going, I'm here, in front of an audience, so this is useful. In front of you cover with the camera. It's all being recorded. You don't want to make a fool of yourself. But you can't resist letting a few home truths come out. Yeah. So forget that you have to sell the song to a house. Just imagine, look at the camera, that's who you're, when you're talking to the great American public, that's them. But a lot of it is for me. Do you know what I mean? All your little jibes are about me. Let's just play with it. So try not, just sit on it as much as you can, and I'll just be irritated. I won't do much, but if I'm looking at you like, I feel wonderful. Franklin, okay.
Well, he goes. And I go. And soon we're humming along, and that's called writing a song. Then he goes. And I go. And the phone goes, and he goes, mutter, mutter, yes, Jerome, mutter, no, Jerome, mutter, 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 that's Lloyd, Jerome, mutter, 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 do it, Jerome, quick, sorry, Charlie. So I go, and he goes, so I go, and soon we're tapping away. Sorry, Charlie. Please, secretary. Please don't get to come. Yes, Miss Bliss. It's a messenger. Thanks, Miss Bliss. No time to wait. Will you order the car? Will you call up the bank? Will you wire the coast? Will you die? Sorry, Charlie. Mutter, 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 mutter. Sell stock. Mutter, buy the rights. Mutter, 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 mutter. Please let me put you on hold. Thanks, Miss Bliss. It's an interview. Thanks, Miss Bliss. Will you time to wait? Will you wire the car? Will you send it to the bank? Will you order the coast? telephone sync, the songs get sold, and the rest of us, he keeps on hold. He's into making movies, and he's now a corporation, right? So I play at home with my wife and kids, and I wait to hear the movie bids, and I've got a little sailboat, and I'm into meditation. Right, so he flies off to California. I discuss him with my shrimp. That's the story of the way we work, me and Franklin Shepherd Inc. I'm surprised at how much I like this. I promise to be honest if you promise to handle the lawsuit. Oh, money. Did I say money? No, I like money lots. I mean, it's better than not. But when it's money, when you're into money, and you should be. See, Frank does the money thing very well. There are people who do it better, and Frank does the music thing very well. You know what? No one does it better. Still, the telephone thinks and the buzz of the buzz. I really don't know what he does, but he makes a ton of money, and I love it for me. Right? So I think, okay, and I started playing, and he somehow knows, because right away, it's hiya, buddy, want to write a show? Got a great idea. We own all the rights with a 2-week out, and I turn around on the guarantee plus a growth set up billing clause. There I am in California, talking deals and turning pink. Back in business, and I know just that. Back with Franklin Shepherd Inc. Very sneaky how it happens, much more sneaky than you think. Start with nothing but a song to sing. Mr. Franklin Shepherd. Wait a minute. I'm getting into deep here. Nothing permanent has happened, just the temporary kink. Friendship's something you don't really lose. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't let me lose the greatest composer or lyricist ever had. Write him. Phone him. Stop him on the streets. You'll recognize him. He'll be the one going through his checkbook. And tell that band to get back to his piano. Very sneaky how it happens. Every day you're on the brink. First the prizes, then the interviews. Oh my God, I think it's happened. Stop me quick before I stink. One more triumph that I can't refuse. In case you didn't know, this is my first time on TV at last. Now here's the point, whatever happens, then we'll all go have a drink, right? That's the guy I love, fellas. Inside, run, quick Jerome, get the president, there's a crazy man on my TV screen. Inside, inside Franklin Shepherd, just by the Caramel Bank, USA Inc.
The song that they do is just an extension of the text of the scene that's happening. Really good. Did you enjoy that? Have you started rehearsals yet?
We've set this one, yeah.
You set it, okay. Oh, another thing, just interesting, and this is just, again, it's something I do with myself, especially when you're playing a character that is quite tense. Make sure I check in with myself all the time, especially in rehearsals, just to be aware. Just make sure in your most that you're still not putting too much tension in your body. Yeah. It's tricky. Have you got anything to say about this song?
I'd just
false start at the end. All those false starts and stuff, that could end the song.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I'm making myself upset. There's more to say.
Yeah. While I'm here, I'm going to say this, or something prompting the way Franklin might respond to one of your things might make you go, do you know what, I'm not bloody finished with you yet. Or how in different ways that we fantasize, or sometimes we're shouting at someone, if we have a fantasy moment, we go, I'm going to tell them the years I've suffered with this person, I'm going to tell them. And maybe that's something to play with, of like, one version is like you're like this cowboy that's come into the saloon and you're just going to shoot him dead, you know, with one killer blow. Another one is you're reasoning with him. That might be another way of, because I know I do in my fantasy when someone's done me wrong. I look, you know, and I go, I should have said this, I should have said that. And when I see them next, I'm going to say that. I'm going to be really blasé about it, or whatever, which never happens. But maybe this could be, you could play with that in rehearsals of he uses a different tactic. So then that frees you up from not thinking, I've got to get more and more manic. Because remember, the music is doing a lot of that for you. And sometimes you could find it hysterically funny and freeing. This is brilliant. I've never felt more alive in my life. I can tell my truth at last. And I have an audience here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you've got all that anyway. It's just, it's playing with it. It's playing with it. And if you can, and I urge everyone to do this, and I try and do this, because again, it was something that Sondheim pointed out to me years ago, and I thought, oh, why have I never thought about that? If you can get an accompaniment of your character's music, of the way of what the piano is, it tells you so much. Like the opening number in Sunday in the Park with George, and then it's all this, a trickle of sweat, spark, and then these long legato bits when she's talking about how much she loves him and she's looking at him. It tells you everything about the character. Also, that character can hold, like he has, so that's his nervous energy, and then he goes bing bong, bang bong, does that kind of thing while he's working it out. There's that, isn't there? What's that bit in there? When he's, keep going, is that right? That was from memory, exactly. So the whirling of the brain. So many of his songs, especially the character-led songs, if you just listen to the accompaniment all the way through, go, oh, I see what he's doing. I see where this story is going. It's just a nice little clue how to get into the work and what's happening in a moment in the work. Does that make sense? Yes. What else was I going to say about that? Nothing else. Dee, was there anything you wanted to say? It's such a difficult song as well, and you do it so well.
I just say in terms of, I think with Steve's stuff, it's, you know, the accompaniment is often subtext and doesn't always, like, it's the distinction between what we're trying to hide, like Buddy Styles or something.
Yes.
So there's a kind of gnarly bits in Buddy Styles, but often the more interesting things play against it.
Yes.
Push down on things that, whereas messages is there to supports.
Yes, yes. It's kind of plays your subtext. So, exactly, that's that, and that kind of supports what I'm saying in terms of that number. It's playing your nerves, so you don't have to play the nerves quite so much. I'm really on top, let's take the Xanax. It's fine, but you hear in your frustration listening, you go, something's not quite right, and of course the song reveals, it all reveals itself. His let down, his anger at where the relationship's gone wrong. I think what's so sweet about Charlie as well, it's so beautiful, is that he doesn't want money. That's nice, of course it's nice, but you're a brilliant writer. Come back to us. Come back to us. Be the genius that you are. You don't need all this. You don't need all this. So always remember as well, everything that Charlie does is to get the love back in the relationship. He happens to be smart, and he happens to be, gets his elbows out every now and again. But he's a good man who's just neurotic and wants his friend to remember to write good work because he's capable of it. And he is a super talented writer in his own right. Doesn't need that really, because you're right, I'm going to concentrate on my plays because you're driving me mad. And my plays do well, and they're well received, and I'm a good writer, and I've got Mary, but I can't let you go because you're gone to the dark side, man. Come back, come back. So remember to embrace that part of the character that loves him and loves their three-way friendship and support network. Just, the wheels got wonky on that one, and you need to keep helping him put the wheel back on, and sometimes you want to just take the wheel off and just shove it in his face. But you're going to be amazing. Again, like I said, you will have the best time. Listen to the accompaniment. That's a good thing for any Sondheim song as a first clue, I think, to what's going on. But brilliant.
Hello, my name is Jack, and I am singing Good Thing Going, sung by Charlie in the show. It started out like a song. We started quiet and slow, with no surprise. And then one morning I woke to realize we had a good thing going. It's not that nothing went wrong. Some angry moments, of course, but just a few, and only moments, no more, because we knew we had this good thing going. And if I wanted too much, was that such a mistake at the time? You never wanted enough. All right, tough. I don't make that a crime. And while it's going along, you take for granted some love will wear away. We took for granted a lot, but still I say it could have kept on going instead of just kept on.
song is so beautiful and you did it so beautifully. Again, this is a thing, right? I don't know about anybody else, but that bit when he said, when you have that little bit of music that has no lyric, and he just gave us that little smile, that made my old heart burst a little bit. And the simplicity, he wasn't singing, he just gave us a little, and that, it's funny, it's in those little quiet moments, he gives you a little moment, and you just did it beautifully. You did it beautifully. You were so nervous, you were so nervous, but they all were so nervous. All we ever want is you to be brilliant and show your potential, and just every day life gets more interesting and that comes out in your work, so bravo. It's funny as well as this song in the show is like this little pure moment of loveliness that's party, and this woman who's really giving Frank a lot of attention says, oh, play that darling song you played to me, and there's these two young guys and Franklin's on the piano and Charlie sings it and it goes down really well. Everyone's like, oh, that's sweet, and then she goes, do it again, and they go, okay. And they start singing the song and then people start talking. Did you see about the blah, blah, blah? Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And there's little Charlie just kind of holding it together going, we shouldn't have done it twice. Done it twice. Look, we've lost them and this is embarrassing now. And again, if you do it as a standalone song, it's a whole different dimension. If you want to try it just for fun, you're going to have to be an actor now. Right? Imagine, so I'm going to just imagine for the fun of it, you're Franklin and you're Charlie, and this is your beautiful little song. So what I'm saying to you is take the emotion out of it and just imagine yourself as a writer going, this is my nice little number that I wrote. But don't worry about giving it full life, just like I'm going to introduce you. Shut up, Jen. Okay. Hey everyone, I got these new kids. They're amazing writers and they wrote this song. I think it's totally amazing. Are you going to sing it for us, yeah? Okay, so put your drinks down and let's listen to this beautiful song they wrote. Yeah!
It started out like a song. We started quiet and slow, with no surprise. And then one morning I woke to realize we had a good thing going. It's not that nothing went wrong. Some angry moments, of course, but just a few. And only moments no more, because we knew we had this good thing going. And if I wanted too much, was that such a mistake at the time? You never wanted enough, alright, tough, I don't make that a crime. And while it's going along, you take for granted some love will wear away. We took lot, but still I say it could have kept on growing instead of just kept on. We had a good thing going.
So thank you. It really is, you know, people go, oh, I'm playing this character, you can only bring yourself to the material you do, and your experience or your version of what it is like to be a murderer, or you don't, just remember it's always you that you bring and you use, and that's your source, and then it will always be true because it's connected to yourself. And you demonstrated that very, very beautifully there. The simplicity sometimes just wins the day. Don't be scared to all these beautiful performers out there. Just know it. Some people are not going to get you. Some people are just, you're going to go into an audition, they want to see fireworks and E sharps and silly bell voice or whatever. But there will be times when people will just appreciate that you're bringing yourself to the table and it will tick the right box. So just, you're enough. And what you have, just try not to emulate someone else. Just go, this is my package. Yes, don't do that. But you know what I mean. All the great artists, all the great writers, they're very true to themselves, and I'm sure we all know that when life works best for us is when we're being authentic in any situation. So be authentic. Thank you so much.
I'm going to not sing, you'll be grateful to hear. We're going to take like a 5-10 minute little break, but do come back, and for the final section, which will be hearing the songs again, but also hearing from the other NYMT ensemble. Hello, are they there? Yes, hello. And some of the finalists from last year's Stephen Sondheim Society competition. So yes, give us 10 minutes, and then come back. Thank you. So to end, we just want to offer up a couple more numbers from Merrily, including, if you've heard in the chat, one of the songs that was from the previous version, which now isn't canon, but we found a version and we'll play it today, which is The Hills of Tomorrow, which is quite sweet. That's from the Stephen Sondheim, the Spotty Kids, we'll call them. And we'll also revisit a couple of songs from the NYMT's work so far on Merrily, and there's Jenna with, well, I'm sure we can convince Jenna to sing at the end. So let's come on, let's get onto the stage. These are the finalists from the Stephen Sondheim Society Student Performer of the Year competition. Say hello.
Behold the living sky. countryside.
Merrily we roll along, bursting with dreams.
Traveling to the far,
Flashing by the countryside, everybody merrily
Catching at dreams, rolling along, rolling along, rolling along. Dreams so bright, so deep, and I on your dreams.
And before you are aware, you are there, you are.
Time goes by and clothes go dry, but you still can't try for your dreams. How does it happen?
Dreams take
One seems all so clear. How can you get so far off the track? Why don't you turn around and go back? How does it happen? Where is the moment? How can you miss it? Isn't it clear? How can you let it slip out of here? How did you ever get there from here? You so you never even notice it's happening.
how did you get to be here?
What was the moment?
How did you get to be here? Pick yourself a road, get to know the countryside. Soon enough you're merrily, merrily
Practicing dreams. Dreams that will explode. Waking up the countryside. Making you feel merrily, merrily. What could go wrong? Rolling along. Some are bumpy, some roads are really far. Some rides are rough and leave you jumpy. Why make it tough by getting grumpy? Plenty of roads to try. Some are bumpy, some isn't very far. Look around, there's signs of playing far. Jumpy, why make it tough by getting frustrated? Plenty of roads to try. Never look back, don't you really fly? Never look back, never look back, never look back, never look back, never look. How did you get to be here? What was the moment? How did you get to be here? Bending with the road, gliding through the countryside. Merrily we roll along, catching at dreams. Dreams that will explode, waking up the countryside. Everybody's merrily, merrily singing your song. Rolling along, rolling along, rolling along, rolling along.
Hello everybody, my name is Cassius and I'm going to be singing a song called Class from Saturday Night, which was Sondheim's first ever proper musical that he wrote both music and lyrics to, so enjoy. The bridge is my rainbow, the bridge is my friend, and it's got a pot of gold at the other end. Not a pot of gold you can buy yourself, it's the Plaza Hotel. I'm crossing the rainbow, I'm taking a ride to a razzle-dazzle world on the other side.
That's what I mean by class. Class is when you're wrapped in Harrison and always look impeccable in what you're wrapped in. Class is when you demonstrate your breeding, like for instance when you call a waiter captain. This is why a room is a flat. You don't say tie, you call it cravat. So you drink from a tumbler instead of a glass. That's the mark of someone who has what I call class. The beautiful people who live out there have savoir-faire. That's class in French. The beautiful people who live with grace on some place where robes and peignoirs emerge as memoirs. The beautiful people are my people. It's them I belong with. So tell me what's wrong with that. I'd like to own a Rolls Royce, a townhouse, a yacht. All things expensive, choice and rare. I've got the friends that I need to share them with me, but I need the things to share. Some people live out their lives and don't give a damn. They buy things on the installment plan. But that's not for me. I don't want to be what I am. I want to be what I can. The beautiful people get up at noon and spend all their time having fun. They better make way, 'cause pretty soon they're 400, maybe 401. 10-buck tips, Havana cigars, cross-country trips in high-powered cars. Captain, bring me a brandy and a large demi-glace. Weeknights I'm a Brooklyn boy, but on Saturday night I've got class.
Hiya, I'm Jade Oswald and I'm going to be singing On the Steps of the Palace. Thank you. He's a very smart prince. He's a prince who prepares, knowing this time I'd run from him. He's spread pitch on the stairs. I was caught unawares, and I thought, well, he cares. This is more than just a malice. Better stop and take stock while you're standing here stuck on the steps of the palace. You think, what do you want? You think, make a decision. Why not stay and be cool? You think, well, that's a thought. What would be his response? But then what if he knew who you were when you know that you're not what he thinks that he wants? And then what if you are what a prince would envision? Although how can you know who you are till you know what you want? Which you don't, so then which do you pick? When you're safe out of sight in yourself, but where everything's wrong, or where everything's right and you know that you'll never belong. And whichever you pick, do it quick, 'cause you're starting to stick to the steps of the palace. It's your first big decision. The choice isn't easy to make. To arrive at a ball is exciting, oh, once you're there, though it's scary. And it's fun to deceive when you know you can leave, but you have goo. And you've learned something too, something you never knew, on the steps of the palace.
Yes, hello. We will be singing Old Friends from Merrily You Will. Hey, here's to us.
Who's like us? Damn few. Hey, old friend, are you with me? Old friend, what do you say? Old friend, are we or are we unique? Time goes by, everything else keeps changing. You and I, we get continued next week. Most friends fade or they don't make the grade. New ones are quick. We made some of them worth something too. But us, old friend, what's to discuss, old friend? Here's to us. Who's like us? Damn you. So, old friend, fill me in slow. Old friend, start from hello. Old friend, I wonder when, where, and how. Old friends do tend to become old habits. Never knew how much I missed it till now. Most friends fade or they don't make the grade. New ones are quick. We made
follow that. That was brilliant. I don't want to say it's occurred to me. What a brilliant, it always occurs to me. But the Stephen Sondheim Society, thank you for everything you do. I get quite emotional talking about it, but you know and I know that, and we all know, that legacy is important to Steve. And it makes my heart sing to see so many young, talented people taking on his work and making it live and pushing it to the front of people's minds in your generation, and you'll do it and pass it on to the generation coming up. And the Sondheim Society has allowed that to happen, and it's so part of their manifesto, so thank you. So this old board's going to sing Losing My Mind. Please bear in mind that I haven't really sung for about 6 months, apart from the warm-up. Rude, Steve. Thank you. Oh, she's off again.
Thank you.
Any more, dear? Good, let's do it before they stop the building.
Thank you for listening to and shopping with us at 5:30. Please take it ready now if you wish to purchase. Thank you.
What did we do?
Thank you for listening.
I've never been held so brilliant. The V&A do not want me to sing. If it happens again, should we just keep going? Yeah. Fuck it. The sun comes up, I think about you. The coffee cup, I think about you. I want you so, it's like I'm losing my mind. The morning ends, I think about you. I talk to friends, I think about you. And do they know it's like I'm losing my mind? All afternoon doing every little chore, the thought of you stays behind. Sometimes I stand in the middle of the floor, not going left, not going right. I dim the lights and think about you. Spent sleepless nights to think about you. You said you loved me, or were you just being kind? Or am I losing my mind? I want you so, it's like I'm losing my mind. going right. I dim the lights and think about you. Spent sleepless nights to think about you. You said you loved me. Or were you just being kind? Or am I losing my
So let's welcome the NYMT chorus from Merrily to the stage. Our performers today, say thank you very much. One more song, and we must go.
Something is stirring, shifting round, it's just begun. Edges are blurring all around, and yesterday is gone. Feel the flow, hear what's happening, hear what's happening. Don't you know we're the movers and we're the shapers, we're the names in tomorrow's papers, up to us now to shine. It's our time, breathe it in, worlds to change and worlds to win. Our turn coming through, me and you, pal, me and you. Feel the flow, hear what's happening, we're what's happening. Long ago, all we had was that funny feeling, saying someday we send them reeling. Now it looks like we can. Someday just began. It's our heads on the block. Give us room and start the